Our hats go off to the Alabama Crimson Tide. You know what? Our hats even go off to the LSU Tigers, who played so well in defeat. Our hats, though, certainly don't go off to the Mad Hatter himself. Mark Rogers TV, just minutes after Alabama somehow came back in the fourth quarter in Death Valley and defeated LSU 21-17 to remain undefeated. We told you a few days ago on Mark Rogers TV in previewing the Tide and the Tigers that LSU had a few key components that had to come through to pull off the upset. Number one, on defense. All those great NFL prospects, Mingo, Minter, Montgomery, and Reed, they had to step up and make big plays. Well, they didn't make game-changing plays. They didn't produce points, but they contained the Alabama offense, especially, which was non-existent in the second half until that final drive. So the LSU defense came through. Number two, the LSU ground game, which is the bread and butter of the Tigers offense, had to step it up. They were non-existent against Florida, but then they stepped up in a big game against South Carolina and dominated that game in the fourth quarter. Jeremy Hill ran for 107 yards, 107 tough yards against a great Tide defense on 29 carries. So it's not like they ran it down Alabama's throats, but they stayed with the ground game and it produced results and kept the football away from McCarron most of the second half. And then, most importantly, Zach Mettenberger had to play out of his mind, and he did, especially in the second half. 24 of 35, 298 through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and you really had to see him throw the football. He made NFL kind of throws. He was hot. He was on the money. Zach Mettenberger showed us something in this game. He was a liability most of the season, but not on this night. He pretty much carried the LSU offense and should have been the hero of the game. Les Miles is a great recruiter. He's a leader, an inspirational leader. He's not a great strategist, and he makes dumb decisions. That's his reputation, and he's earned that reputation, and he certainly was on his game in this game against Alabama. First off, 4th and 12, 47-yard field goal. They line up, and it's not just a stupid decision, but it's a stupid play call because he thought his kicker could outrun the Alabama special teams on 4th and 12, not 4th and 2 or 4th and 3, and it didn't even come close to working. So he pulls points off the board, and even if he didn't have confidence in his field goal kicker, punt the football with one of the best punters in the country, pin Alabama deep. Your defense is playing extremely well, but trailing 7-3 late in the first half, he takes points off the board, and again, he could have made it a 7-6 game at halftime. So that's gaffe number one. Number two for Les Miles was after scoring to cut the Alabama lead of 14-10 with all that momentum in Death Valley, he goes for an onside kick. It didn't work. The ball hit the kicker, and LSU set up Alabama in great field position. Another reason why this was a stupid decision was even if LSU gets the football and the onside kick works, which it does about 15% of the time, even if it worked, it doesn't set you up in scoring position. You still have to drive about 55 to 60 yards against maybe the best defense in college football. So the risk does not outweigh the reward, not even close. So, well, the risk did outweigh the reward, and LSU almost gave up the touchdown that would have made it a 21-10 lead, but fortunately for LSU, Alabama coughed up the football around the 10-yard line. And gaffe number three was in protecting a 17-14 lead, needed to again put points on the board. They were deep in Alabama territory, but they set up Spencer Ware, a running back, at quarterback. He almost bobbled and did bobble the snap, almost lost the football, and didn't even come close to gaining a yard. A long 4th and 1 play against, again, a great Alabama defense, a 4th and 1.5 that had no chance of working, and they got stuffed there, and it could have been 20-14 at that point. So bad decisions by Les Miles, and of course Nick Saban coached a great game as well. He is the best in the business. So this, again, a mismatch, maybe not as obviously as it was in the 21-0 shellacking in the BCS championship game last year, but Nick Saban, again, defeats Les Miles, and Alabama pulls it out. McCarron made the plays in the fourth quarter, and certainly in that last drive, and hitting 4 consecutive passes, covering 72 yards, and Alabama wins at 21-17. So now we've got the Tide along with Oregon, Notre Dame, Kansas State, and we even throw in Louisville because they do play Division I football as undefeated. So we've got a mess in the BCS, and certainly we've got a lot of football left, so things are going to happen. But let's say they don't. Alabama, Oregon, Kansas State, Notre Dame, and Louisville are all undefeated. So we now leave it in your hands. Who plays for the national championship if things don't change? We're, again, going to leave it up to you and would like to hear from you on Mark Rogers TV.